we can chase winning all we want, but ultimately, some things that are going to be completely out of our control. I think every season of my life, I've had a different teacher. My faith certainly has a lot of influence in who I am, what I do, how I think, the principles that I live by. And I still have my notes from being a rep. You know, I used to carry a notepad where I would write my notes, and I once in a while go back and read it. But I have things written in there, such as, if I don't do my best, this person's name aren't going to have the life they deserve.
Okay, I'm really excited today. I'm here with Farid. Farid, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Good to be here.
You have a big Top Gun.
Yes.
So that's why you're at Cydcor.
That should be exciting.
Very exciting. I think 200 people.
Yeah, and some of these guys haven't met you yet.
This is going to be great. I mean,
yeah.
I hope they're looking forward to it. I want you to tell us just a little bit about yourself, your journey, your story.
Okay. I'll start off with my background because I think it's relevant to the story. So I was born in Azerbaijan, which is a former Soviet Union. Technically, when I was actually born in Azerbaijan, it was still USSR.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, at a pretty earlier age, my biological father decided to, in essence, abandon me, my sister, and my mom. And my mom was the one that decided to take on the whole, family, put us on her shoulders, and in essence raise us and take care of us. Now, in Azerbaijan, women aren't, the hashtag boss babe. Like that doesn't exist where I come from, right? There's no well-paid female, workers. So
still to today? Or is
maybe,
it a little
maybe
different?
Today is a little bit better, but it's still overall not a country where you can generate wealth. If you want to move to the next class up, it only happens by somebody letting you come in, right? So it's not a capitalistic country by any means. It's not a democracy. There's no opportunity that comes your way on a daily basis. So growing up in that environment, my mom is like, okay, how am I going to take care of two kids? And, her dad's dead, so there's no man in the house that takes care of my grandmother. So she decided to learn English, moved to Dubai. Oh. And Dubai was kind of like not what it is right now. It's an up-and-coming place. So, she got a couple of different jobs, literally working multiple jobs, and eventually just brought us to Dubai, and was in essence a mom and dad to the household, right? So the provider, the protector, the nurturer, and then at the age of 18, actually let me backtrack here. Then my stepdad came into the picture a few years before I graduated high school, and my stepdad was really my father now. German, literally, was a colonel in the German army.
Oh, wow.
So highly disciplined. Matter of fact, I still remember to these days the times when I got punished was when I was not 15 minutes early to different, whether it's a dentist appointment, if I'm late by 1 minute, he would freak out. So that's the father figure that enters into my life. And then at the age of 18, I'm graduating high school. My friends go to Canada from Dubai to Montreal. They go to school in there, and they're all calling me. They're like, "Farid, best parties ever. You should come move here." I was like, "Fine." I applied to a school in Canada. I got in there, and while I'm waiting for my, student visa, I need a summer job. And my mom happens to be in real estate at this point in her life, and she gets me in. And within a month, I'm killing it in real estate. I'm selling, I'm leasing. I'm 18 years old and I'm dealing with $1 million properties, and I'm, making 3, 4, 5 substantial large sales every month. And at this point, I learned that, subconsciously, even without me paying attention, I'm learning sales. My first gig is 100% commission. I don't really have a manager per se that's managing me, right? So I'm technically working for someone, but hey, if I wanna make money, go sell, right? So I learned the spirit of entrepreneurship at a very young age, and I'm not necessarily chasing after it. It's just what's happening to me.
Right.
But at the same time, it was so easy at that point. The demand for properties in Dubai was so high that even if you're barely trying, you're selling properties. So I don't necessarily have the work ethic, in essence, right? But I'm starting to pick up the skill sets, and I'm making great money doing it. And then in 2008, the market crashes. At that point, I read an article, and I think we had 80% of the world's cranes were in Dubai at that point.
Wow.
So there's an oversupply, very little demand. And right about that time was, through some personal things, I come to faith in Christ, which is a huge part of my life. And I decided to take a step back from business, from real estate. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to deepen my faith first, just focus on myself. And I applied to a Bible school in the U.S. And that's how I end up here. Now, when I come here, in school, I meet my wife, Cherie. And, the process, the immigration process is an interesting one, right? So it takes them almost a year after we get married for me to get a green card to be able to legally work. So I'm sitting at home after we got married, and legally I can't work to provide for my wife, which is an interesting place to be in.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to just sit on my hands. So I picked up all these jobs, and he's my best friend now. But at that time, this guy decides to hire me, and I'm working my first job in the U.S. I'm working in the fairs, the county fairs, the state fairs, whatsoever. And I'm selling ice cream. That's my first job in the U.S. But, now looking back, probably one of the best things that has happened to me in the U.S. And the reason being is because I was working 16 hours a day. Up until this point, I never, ever learned what it means to have work ethic. I was good at sales. I was okay with 100% commission. I understood entrepreneurship from that side, but I didn't understand what it meant to have a work ethic, right? So in Dubai, every day I would work maybe 2 hours, and then I was out. But here now I'm working literally from the minute I open up my eyes, and it's manual labor.
Right.
You're on your feet all day. You're carrying 50-pound bags of sugar and whatnot. So one of the best things that has happened to me anyway. And the minute after I get my green card, I'm like, all right, now it's my turn to chase a real career here. I can't keep doing this, obviously. So I put my resume up there. And I have all these different ideas in my mind. I have friends that are trying to recruit me into financial industry. I looked at real estate here because I'm like, I know I can crush real estate. I've done it before. And then at the same time, I put my resume on Monster. I don't know if you remember. And I get a call from Sandra, and she's, come on in for an interview. But at the same time, before I put my resume up there and I start this whole chase for a career, I'm in my house and I get down on my knees and I'm praying. I was like, God, like whatever you want, right? You brought me here. I thought I was going to end up in Dubai. I thought I was going to be in real estate. And then I thought I was going to be in ministry. And now I'm here. I have no clue what you want me to do, but I trust you. So the next day, Sandra calls me, and we talk, and I forgot what she even said. But internally, I can hear a voice saying, this is what you prayed for. Go for it. So I show up to sit down with Sebastian, and I have no clue what I'm getting into, right? And I was like, you know what? This is what God's telling me to be in here, right? So I trust it. And the next day, I'm in retail sales. I start in retail sales.
But why stay?
So a couple of things. it was tough at the beginning because I knew sophisticated sales, real estate sales, right? I didn't understand what impulse sales meant. Like, how do you sell something in 7 minutes and under, right? So I had to learn that part, and it was tough. It took me about 6 to 7 weeks. But at the same time, I found out that, hey, there's standards that you have to meet, minimum quotas that you have to do in order to stay employed here. Didn't think I was going to hit that minimum quota. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to quit because I've never quit something before. I was like, let's just get fired. If I don't pick it up, I tried, right? Fire me. So I was like, I'm just gonna do my best and probably get fired in a couple of weeks because I clearly am not gonna get this down. But sure enough, week after week, I got better and better. And from there on out, I just put my head down and I was like, let's do this. Took me exactly 2 years from the day I started to get to my goal of ownership.
So that was goal number one.
Mm-hmm.
What made you keep pushing?
I think if I'm going to do something, it only makes sense to go all the way till the end. So I'm already planning on how do we get to the next phase and the next phase after that. But it's pretty simple, right? It's not that sophisticated in my mind. If I'm going to do something, let's just go all the way. And this is probably influenced because of my faith. My business is a lot more like a ministry rather than my business. And I still have my notes from being a rep. I used to carry a notepad where I would write my notes. And I once in a while go back and read it. But I have things written in there such as, if I don't do my best, this person's name aren't going to have the life they deserve. So my fuel wasn't necessarily a title or even money per se. And don't get me wrong, married man, I do want to provide. So,
sure.
And I want to provide the best, nothing short of the best. But my primary was, I want to be able to change lives to the best of my abilities. And to me, I think the best way to do that is be able to provide opportunity and help it make it real in other people's lives.
So being an entrepreneur, the concept of running your own business, I think it's very attractive. I don't think it's easy.
No.
So tell us about some of the obstacles. What are the big learnings and how you grew and developed through this process?
The biggest question I used to ask, so when I started my business, I was already married, a few years. And one of the things I realized was, in order to get this off the ground, I'm putting in 100 hours a week, no date day. And marriage is something that I take very seriously. I value it a ton. So it's bothering me that, I have my wife that, she's my, I care about her. I want to invest into this marriage. I want her to have a smile on her face. I want her to be, happy. But at the same time, this business requires 100 hours of my time. So the question I used to ask at the beginning was, how do I have work-life balance? And the answer that I came to is not an answer that I liked per se myself, but I understood it. I understood, the cost versus the price. Right. So I realized that what I'm actually seeking for is an unbalanced life. Meaning, when I'm 50, when I'm 60, when I'm older, I want to be able to do things without asking for permission or I guess, knowing, is it possible? That's the level of freedom that most people never will achieve. And that sounds like a very unbalanced life, right? Being able to do whatever you want, wherever you want, with whoever you want. Now, that kind of lifestyle can be used for selfish ambition or, selfless ambition. I realized that if that's what I want in the future, I have to have an unbalanced life now. So that's number one. But second thing is, I see a lot of young guys that are also in a relationship and they say, I'm going to go and do this and be this, which is what I told my wife at that time. And she was okay with it because she noticed how serious I was about my goals. Meaning, I didn't come home and play PlayStation. So she knew everything I did was about my goals. And she gave me the space to chase my dreams. But I think so many guys have that goal and they're genuine about it and they tell their significant other, but then they come home and they spend 4 hours playing PlayStation until 2 in the morning. And then they're like, well, why does she not respect my goals? Well, it's not necessarily she doesn't respect your goals. She knows you're not going to reach it.
Doing this, right?
Exactly. So, I know, so all that to say, to boil it down, work life for me, eventually I realized it doesn't exist and it shouldn't exist because I didn't want a work-life balance in the future. And at the same time, if it is going to be an unbalanced life now, make sure that your words and your actions actually meet each other. Sometimes there's a huge disconnect between what people say they want and the price they're willing to pay.
What do you think have been your biggest learnings? Like, how have you, obviously there's growth through just time and experience, but
Right.
how do you feel like, hey, just doing this or being in this process has changed me in this way, or I've learned this?
Oh, the biggest lesson, so my personality, my value spectrum, if you will, loyalty is one of the ones that's up there, right? If I am loyal to you, there's very little that you can do to break that loyalty. I used to treat a lot of my guys this way, to where I was loyal to a fault. Sometimes I would want people's goals more than they would want those goals. And I think that's been a lot of the source of my heartaches, right? And the heartbreaks, to where I used to, when somebody would quit, I'd be like, what do you mean you're going to quit? You wanted this. Like, I want this for you now. And I realized that, when you hold on to people, make sure you hold them with an open hand, not necessarily a closed hand. Meaning some people will join you for a season, and you have to honor and give them the space that it's their goals and it's their payment that they have to make, not yours. You just have to be able to facilitate. And I didn't realize that. I was just a facilitator of those goals. I thought I was like, one of the things I tell my guys in my team currently is, guys, this is not a family. Make no mistake, this is a team, right? I have a daughter. There's nothing she can do to break that family bond. But if you're part of my team, there are things you can do to break that bond. So it's understanding that people, are going to come into your life and you can be loyal to them, but ultimately they have to be loyal to their own goals too.
Yeah, it's interesting. You reminded me of something I hear with Al all the time. There's only one relationship that is unconditional, and it's with your children.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And every other relationship has conditions.
Right.
Which, is when you hear it, you're like, really?
Yeah.
But to learn it and feel it, it's a different thing.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Probably my biggest lessons.
Huh.
Yeah.
Who do you think, who would you credit has been most influential? Just on you, your life?
I think every season of my life, I've had a different teacher. My faith certainly has a lot of influence in who I am, what I do, how I think, the principles that I live by. But it's funny, this last 2 years of my life, my daughter, who's not even 2, has, I analyze how she operates, how she is in this life, and the world is her playground, right? She has zero concept of fear. And I can't help but think, that's how we were created. How did we screw it up? How do I have all these fears? Right?
What do you think it is?
I think it's a society. I think it's, the stories that gets implanted into your mind by other people. And I don't know how do we unlearn some of those things? I'm trying to unlearn some of those fears because I want to be completely fearless of anything. So I just watched a video of 6 toddlers, my daughter's age, not even 2. They were in this little playpen, and they put 6 pythons in this playpen. And I was sharing this story with my office. Actually, I was like, if I put 6 pythons in the middle of this room, 80% of you guys will run.
100%.
Because everyone's scared of snakes, myself included. I would run.
Right.
And all 6 of these kids were playing with those snakes. Zero fear. They were holding the pythons. They were swinging it around. Like, in their mind, it was a game. So all 6 of those kids will most likely grow up, and eventually at a certain point, they will learn the fear of snakes. And us along the way, we have learned things such as fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, fear of other people's opinion. If we are wise, I think we start to unlearn those fears.
How do you think about that? Send me that video. I'd love to watch it. That's crazy. How do you think about that now with parenting? How do you and Cherie talk about that? And what is, because you have a big influence.
Yeah. It's a scary thought because I don't want her to deal with not necessarily the problems that I've dealt when I was growing up, but how do I say this? I hope that she has different issues that she's tackling rather than the ones that I'm tackling today. But the harsh truth is she is going to still eventually learn some things that she was never meant to learn. And I could be as protective of a dad as possible, but there's very little in my control. Right? So I think the harsh reality is, and it's not a reality that I'm a fan of, but she is going to learn certain fears that she might not learn from me, but strictly she might see somebody else go through it and learn that, this is something to be afraid of.
It's a really healthy way to look at it. It's really, you don't have control. That's a hard thing for people.
Yes. Yeah.
A really hard thing to let go of. This outcome is just, I am the facilitator. I think you were saying earlier when we were talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It is. And part of that humbles you a little bit, right? Because we can chase winning all we want, but ultimately there's some things that are going to be completely out of our control. Right? Like, she will draw her next breath, not because of my power, but because God decided that she should still live. So there are just some things that are out of my control, and you have to be 100% okay with that.
Okay with that, yeah. Yeah, it's a hard thing for people.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the fun stuff. You ready?
All right.
All-time favorite book, movie, song.
All-time favorite book. Obviously, Bible is a huge one. I think it's the best book. One that I've been recommending a lot more in the last 5 years probably has been Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference.
It's a great negotiation book. Yeah, it's great.
And he's a fun person to read in general. Best book I've read in 2024 is The Motive by Patrick Lencioni. I think it's very helpful, and far more people would be benefiting if they figured out their motives for why they want to do certain things before they start doing them. Favorite movie is a tough one. I think Godfather is still my favorite one.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good
Godfather
one.
is all 3 of them are great. And just being from Azerbaijan, I can relate to the Italians. We are all very similar in, nature and personality. And anyway, so song, I don't have one. I like country music. I don't.
That's right. I forgot that about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was meant to be a cowboy.
I forgot that. I keep forgetting
Not too
that.
sure
You want
how
to
it
live in
happened.
Montana. You want to
I want to be a rancher.
a ranch. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I remember
Yeah.
that video you showed me with the moose. I'm like, what are you
Yes.
doing out there?
Yeah. Yes.
If you could collaborate with any person, living or dead, on a project, who would it be and why?
I really like Elon Musk now. I'm a huge fan. Every time I listen to him, he's a different level of genius. So being able to work on a project with him sounds fun. Yeah, I would say it's between him or Richard Branson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The guys that are going to the moon
Yes.
or Mars.
Yeah.
All right. I just heard that Bezos landed his,
Yes, the Blue Origin.
the Blue Origin with the women on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your guilty pleasure when it comes to entertainment or indulgence?
Ooh, entertainment, Yellowstone.
Of course.
It's a great show.
It is. It is.
What was the other one? Entertainment or?
Indulgence.
I mean, I think Middle Eastern food's the best.
Okay.
Is probably what I would indulge in if I ever have to. But yeah, I don't really have too many. I mean,
I was gonna
I'm not
say.
a drinker or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. And then I'm going to do one more. What is one more thing on your bucket list that you're determined to accomplish?
Back to the fears thing, right? I want to eventually get to a place where I'm willing to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. I don't think I'm ready for that yet, but I think I'm gonna get ready eventually.
You're going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sheree did it in Dubai.
Did
And I
she
was-
love And you didn't do it?
I was like, no, you go up there, and I didn't. But I say that eventually I'm gonna do it.
And is it the fear of heights or falling?
Both.
Okay.
I've learned those fears very well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was like, oh, a lot of people share them.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah,
Well, I want to thank
that's
you for
my
your
bucket
time.
list. Thank you.
This was
Appreciate it.
great.
Yeah.
I think people will get to know you better, and I really appreciate you coming early
Thank
and
you.
hanging out with me.